All right, welcome everybody to this week's InPower Coffee Break. I'm Dana Theus, founder of InPower Coaching. I'm here with Mary Brody with InPower Coaching also. And we do these live coffee breaks every Tuesday from 1 to 1:30. We hope you'll join us both live on Facebook now and also on our own webinar platform. You can find all this information at coffeebreak.InPowerCoaching.com. And in these topics, we really explore a lot of things about how to become more empowered in your work, in your life, in your career, how to be an empowered leader and build an empowered organization. So we kind of look at all these different dimensions of what it means to be effective in the world. And today we're going to be focusing on a career development theme that we've been exploring a lot here. We're calling it the fluid career. Last week we talked about being a free agent in your career. And this week we're going to look at it more from a career development standpoint and talk about why we're all living what we're calling a fluid career, where we go from job to job more frequently and hopefully more smoothly. Although I think Mary will talk about how the fact a lot of people don't feel like this is a smooth process. You know, they feel like it's a hard process, and we want to start to give you a perspective that'll help you think of your career development more fluidly and helpfully. So pull up a cup of whatever and join us, and feel free to leave chat messages if you're on the Zoom platform or in Facebook Live. Mary, can you keep an eye on the Facebook Live in case people want to leave comments for us there?
Let me see. Like now, where do I find the?
It's just on our InPower Coaching page.
Okay, I had to take down because I'm travel. Yeah, being on the road. I might have to do it through my phone because the internet connection isn't as it's working, but it's not fantastic like home.
Okay.
So, let me.
Well, I can pull it up here too. Okay, so let's talk about what the fluid career is. And I wanted to introduce this topic with a reality here that a lot of us assume that when it comes to our career development, our company is the one it should be helping us with our career development. And that is a big statement. And there was sorry. I think Mary's got someone coming into our conference room there. I'm just going to go ahead and keep going. And Mary, why don't you mute yourself? So I saw some research recently that is really important to this topic because they asked a bunch of people who they thought was responsible for their career development. And 75% of the people said, well, I think my company is. I think my company and my boss should be, helping me be effective in my own job now, but positioning me for my next career, helping me or my next step in my career and helping me understand what that might be. Do you know how many bosses and companies agreed with that perception? 2%. So 98% of the companies and bosses out there were saying, no, it's not my job. It's not our job to help you decide what you want to do next and get you prepared for your next thing. It's your job. And that's a big gap in our perception about who's responsible for looking out for where our career is going, a really big gap. And I think it speaks to perhaps an older time in history where, people advanced because of mentoring. Mentoring was the primary reason. That was before online job banks and, and monster.com and things like that. The way that you got ahead was you had a mentor, and a mentor kind of helped you figure out the culture and how to position yourself in your career. They introduced you to people. And certainly mentors are still critically important. But now it's more, that's not the way that most businesses are advancing people. Average turnover in the private sector now is 3.7 years per job. So more common now, instead of advancing within your company, you're advancing by going to another company. And so the company says, why should I help, advance you when there's a high likelihood you're going to leave my company? Why should I invest in you? And so we again, I believe those are some of the dynamics behind this distinction that we're seeing between what our expectations are for who's helping us with our career and who is actually helping us in our career. And it's a warning sign for us that we really need to take more ownership. We need to take more accountability in our own career development. So that's number one. Number two is that most of us tend to operate on the assumption we'll have a few major jobs in our career. And in fact, the average tenure, as I said, is 3.7 years in the private sector. It's longer in government. But that means if you have, a career where you're working until 65 or 70, you're going to have 10 to 12, maybe even 15 jobs over the course of your career. And when you start to look at each job as one in this string of positions, now you can see some jobs are preparing you for other ones. And some jobs are giving you a lot of excitement, and some of jobs are helping you, maintain an income while you go do with something else, go back to grad school, have a family, help aging parents, take some sabbaticals. All of a sudden, our career isn't a progression up the ladder. It's all over the ladder to wherever we want to go in our lives. And so re-looking at our career as this progression of jobs gives us an opportunity to think about how do we fluidly move from job to job in a way that's designed to support us and support our priorities in life and not become traumatic, not let us stay in one job too long and feel like we're stuck and we're mad at our employer because they're not helping us, move on to the next phase, and they're not investing in us. And we just spend all our energy being mad that that's not happening instead of taking ownership and saying, okay, you know what, before I get to that point, I'm going to start going, positioning myself for the next thing. Because when you take on the responsibility to do that and keep positioning yourself for the next thing early enough so you can move fluidly into the next thing that's going to support your life in the next 3 years, now you have a totally different perspective on your own career development and what you should be doing along the way in each job to prepare yourself for the next job. So that's kind of the backdrop for this conversation. But I think, Mary, I know you have a lot of perspectives on this. We've talked about this a lot. And I'd love it if you could share your perspective on this. Like how is this fluid way of looking at our careers different than the way we used to maybe look at it?
Yeah, I think right now I think it becomes more about you, right? And being more, I think one of the things I also want to talk about is like the self-awareness issue that comes into this fluid career. I think before that you'd go into a company and you kind of let the company guide you, and it wasn't necessarily about what you wanted. You kind of found things along the way, but you saw it as more of a job. And I think today we're looking for a little more career fulfillment, not just necessarily a way to make money.
Right.
And so, I think that career fulfillment gets you to go from like what I'm doing now and how can that be better? How can that be more me? And so you go from place to place. And that's where I think, maybe we're clinging on to this old idea of like the company is like a dad, right? Like go see dad and dad's going to tell you what to do next. And dad will foot the bill for, whatever training you need to do your job better. And now we're on our own doing the self-awareness. And then, what does that mean? Right. And then we're still going, well, dad, can't you fund this? And dad's like, no, like you said with the stat, right? 2% think it's their job. It's real, and that I know personally, I've had to do so much bargaining in my career that I've given up. And that's part of the reason of even my own business. Like it's too.
What do you mean bargaining?
You have to almost like the negotiation to get a company to pay for you to go to a conference can be, it's like, I think most companies have great intentions and they say things like, oh, we want to fund you. And we want to fund your career, and everyone puts aside money every quarter, like they're quote unquote supposed to, right? But then do they use that money? And I don't necessarily see it used. I see employees say they're too busy, and employers just, instead of saying, hey, we have funds, you need to use it, they kind of let it go because they don't want to pay. I hate to say it, but they don't want to pay.
Well, so let's make a distinction here. First of all, I love your characterization of dad, right? Because that kind of goes back to that mentoring model. Like, I should have a mentor, or someone should be mentoring me along with this stuff. And you're right. That's
Yes.
just the story we tell ourselves about career development that is less and less true. And I would say, even if you do have a mentor, your mentor may be helping you, but that's not an official, and even if it's an official responsibility of the company. I supported company mentoring programs, and they're more focused on mentoring to make you effective in your current job. And then secondarily, it's like, well, if you can help them figure out what what their progression will be, that's nice. But it's mostly about, we need to make sure that mentors are helping people be effective in their current job. So it's not always necessarily about the future. But I wanted to come back to a distinction, because there's career development in terms of training and skills and experience development. And then there's career development, like guidance, like, what do I want? Okay, so I become good at this. I'm a marketing coordinator. And so let's say I get really good at that. What's the next step for me? What are logical progressions for me that build on the career skills I have? A lot of the times, I don't know that. I don't have those jobs yet. I don't have a lot of visibility into what else may be out there other than my boss's job. So, and depending on the company I'm at, maybe my boss's job isn't even a good model. So, sometimes it's career development, like knowing what's possible, and then helping mentor and coach you into what it is you want, what's important to you in your next phase, what could you be capable of, and then making connections, getting introductions, going out and meeting people who are doing that, finding out who's actually hiring for those things. All that is still career development, much less, putting a resume together and interviewing and stuff like that. So there's the training aspect. And then there's just guidance. And that's where the dad really comes in handy. Like, can someone just tell me what my choices are and what I should do? And that's what I think people are not getting. They're not getting it from, their companies. And if they are through mentors, it tends to be informal.
Well, I think also career paths aren't necessarily as linear as they used to be either.
Yes.
So, that's one thing I've kind of observed. Like before, you'd just go in and you just go up the chain, and you'd go from specialist to manager to director, and you just went straight up. And now I think people are switching around, like doing complete career makeovers.
Yes.
Or they're expanding out their knowledge to be more broad, maybe. And cover more areas, and that doesn't necessarily fit in. I know in the consulting world, in the technical world, one of the challenges that came up is that some people want to stay technical. They don't want to move into a managerial track, and they want to be an expert in what they do. And that brings up a whole host of challenges, I think, for companies, because they're like, oh my God, we've got this person who's super senior. They don't want to manage people. They're perfectly happy just doing their thing. Right. They're fine being a team lead. That's cool. And that's about as good as it gets, right? Otherwise, they want to do, and I think this brings up that principal aspect. So I know that there's the track that goes, like master or principal or whatever. So you can recognize someone's seniority versus the managerial. And I know in consulting, that became quite the challenge, because a lot of these guys didn't want to manage people. They didn't want to be a managing director, but they had a ton of knowledge, and they were like, you got to, pay me for that.
Right.
Right.
Well, yeah. And, this is one of the opportunities that when we look at our career as having, 10 or 12 positions, now all of a sudden we don't have to be thinking always moving up the ladder. It used to be moving up the ladder was like you weren't successful. This comes into the definition of success. What does a successful career look like? It used to be, well, you either got to be the boss and the boss's boss and the boss's boss, or else you weren't successful. You leveled out. There was something wrong with you. And that's just not the way it is anymore. There's a whole bunch of people who are like, I don't even want to get to the top. This is a whole topic. In women's leadership, they do surveys to find out how many women want to break through the glass ceiling, and not that many. Now, there's also a lot of men who don't, although typically more men do than women. But the point is that, we have this jungle gym opportunity now. We have the ability to keep getting interesting work without getting more and more managerial responsibility. And like you said, organizations are struggling with, how do I acknowledge people who, have maybe not managerial responsibility that's expanded, but they have a lot of experience. And And the good news is, so let's talk about the upside of this. The downside maybe there's no dad to turn to, but the upside is we have all this flexibility to define success the way we want to define it, to look at each job as a stepping stone, towards something that's going to feel fulfilling for us, and we can continue to redefine what that fulfilling thing looks like. I mean, all that flexibility should be welcome, and yet a lot of us, I think, experience it with a lot of trepidation and anxiety too.
Yeah. I look at how I've kind of built my career, and I'd say I went more broad than necessarily did the path up. Mm-hmm. And I think then it comes to like your personal, like what you want to do. That's where I find the freeing of the fluid. Because I think before, if you put me into a standard organization where I'd have to go the levels, I'd go up the levels. I don't think I'd be feeling so rewarded as having the breadth of knowledge, which brings a whole different, and then what do you bring to a team, right? And this gets into like a fluid career that you are adding to a team, and then you can go to another team, or, then it also brings up, if you're in a gig economy, multiple teams that you're adding value to, because you're not needed full time on any particular team.
Right.
And that's not a bad thing. Is that bad? And I think we've been trained to think, and I think this is the whole thing of the dad, right? We're trained to think it's bad, but is it really bad?
Actually, so let's talk about that in terms of what does success mean? Because talking about the gig economy,
right.
First of all, what's a gig for anybody who's not familiar with that? I mean, a gig is basically a short-term project where you're it has a beginning and an end. It's like being a contractor, but it's more almost like a job. Like instead of being on a project, like on a contractor, you have a contract where you're on a big project or you're on a big team over a lot of time. A gig is like, okay, I'm gonna create this brochure for somebody, or I'm gonna do this work product. And I hold myself out to do that, and I take orders. Now, it's for my time. It's not a product. It's my service. But I'm taking these gigs, and I take multiple gigs. And some of them, like you said, Mary, I'm sitting on a team with other people, and I'm playing my part. I'm doing my piece of it. I'm doing an analysis that they need to move from step A to B, and then I'm done. And people are starting to put together, careers out of multiple gigs, and it's particularly in technical services, but not exclusively. And I see a lot of people moving in that direction who are saying, I love this flexibility. I can be doing my work at Starbucks. I can pick up my kid, take him to the ball game, and sit there and do a gig, while I'm at the ball game while they're practicing or something. They're defining success not as moving up the ladder, not as how many people they manage, but can I feed myself and my family and live the life I want to live? So it's more a lifestyle choice. And I'm sure that was always the case, but certainly when I first came into the workforce in the 80s, people didn't talk like that. People talk like you get a job and then, you get a raise and you get another raise and you take on more responsibility, and that's how we know you're successful. And so this whole new idea of success as being, can you support the lifestyle that you want? It's new, and it provides tons of flexibility. And I know women are really grabbing onto this. This is a lot of the reason we see the numbers growing in women entrepreneurs, is because they're stepping out of the hierarchical and they're saying, hey, I want to, string together an income that allows me to live the life I want to live. So that just opens up a whole new way to think about maybe parts of our career we're doing we're in the company, we're working up the ladder, and parts of our career we're taking gigs, we're taking contracts, and maybe when the kids leave or when, the parents are not don't take so much time, then we go back into the more hierarchical situation. All those possibilities open up.
Well, I think technology's also helped with this as well, because I think when you were bringing up the 80s, right? And I was thinking back, I'm like, you didn't really have the technology then, right? Like you had HyperCard with Apple was like a new idea, and you needed to connect your computer to a phone, and you're like, well, I remember as a kid, like I wanted to do it, and I'm like, but who else is out there? And you knew, like, there's probably no one. It's going to be you, and you're all by yourself on like a ham radio in the desert.
I'm totally dating myself, but I remember when fax machines were new.
Right? I do too, when it was a big deal. And,
Right.
now I think with technology, it's enabled us to think of work differently and to think of it more fluid. And I think that, when we start seeing the rise of the internet, that's when people start saying, hey, do I really need to be at work to work? Can I be somewhere else? And then I think that idea started to expand, and the creativity has started. And now we have all these tools. Like before, you didn't have these tools. Like you were behind a firewall, and now you can be behind a password, And again, I think it depends on the nature of your company and things like that. Because I know some companies do require more. That's a whole separate discussion about, do you want to be a walking security violation? Or,
Yes.
because there's reasons for this. I have some great stories of I have been a security violation and quickly mended my ways because of what they told me, what they're afraid of. But it has brought even that up as well. I think IT departments have done a fantastic job addressing the bring your own device, bring your own, whatever, and connect it to our network or not, or how do we handle this, and how do we handle remote workers? But it has also given people, like you said, that flexibility, and they can think about what could be and how can I afford my life and not do it in a traditional 9-to-5 way.
So, let's talk about this for a second, because, so first thing let's say is that taking advantage of this flexibility is not always financially similar. It certainly introduces new insecurity. If you have to worry about healthcare, you got to worry about healthcare, right? I mean, it's this isn't it's all joy and flowers and roses. You have to market yourself, you have to network, et cetera. And some people really don't like doing that. And it's a decision I learned this myself firsthand. Let me tell you, you have to negotiate it with any partner in your life who's going to be, funding part of that insecurity if your income is going up and down. So there's, it's not all wine and roses over there, but it offers people opportunities that they didn't used to have. And like you said, technology is a big part of that. But I want to come back and offer some sort of distinct advice for thinking about yourself in a fluid career as having one of many career opportunities that you're in and you're moving into. Because I think it's a mindset shift. And when you shift into this mindset and you realize, I'm surfing my fluid career, a couple of things happen. First of all, when you take a new job, you're not likely to be there for a long time. So have some quick wins. Go in and have, be determined that within the first month, you're going to do something good that people will recognize and see your value quickly. Certainly within the first 6 months, you want to deliver something really meaningful and important. Because when you do that, then you're positioned right away as someone who's valuable. So even if you're only there for 2 or 3 years, they're going to treat you as valuable. They're going to want to keep you, and maybe they'll give you some good offers. When you're thinking about moving on, you don't have time to ramp up. You need to have some quick wins. And I think if we walk into new positions with that in mind, we position ourselves as valuable right from the get-go. And secondly, start thinking that before you get bored of that job or before you get tired of that job, start positioning yourself for the next thing, which could be inside the company. But think of it in terms of this is a project that I do until I'm not really getting what I need out of it anymore. And then I need to move on to the next project, whether it's in this company or elsewhere. And sometimes we don't do that. We're like, I'm an accountant, I do this thing. Or, I'm in marketing and I do, I'm responsible for making sure these two people talk to each other, and that's not helping you, because then you just do that until you're tired of it and you go, oh, I'm stuck now, what do I do? Whereas if you go, no, I'm going to do this while I learn the skill, I enjoy this process, I enjoy doing it. And then I'm going to start noticing when I'm ready to move on. And before I get tired of it, that's when I'm going to start networking and figuring out what I need and going out and finding the mentors who can give me guidance and start looking for the kind of job I want, internal to the company or external, and move before I'm bitter and bored. That, to me, that one is just huge. Way too many people don't do that. What other advice do you have?
I think it's similar to yours because I know I was given this advice a long time ago because I went into careers with the mentality of you go into a company for as long as you can. And that's where I had a mentor in the company. And she I was complaining to her about how I couldn't stand my job anymore. And she was like, well, you just go in and take what you can. So what do you want to get out of this company?
Right.
And that's what I said to her. I'm like, well, I think I got it. And she's like, okay, then you got your answer.
Move on.
Time to go. She goes, start getting your resume out. Like, and it's funny because she was at one point like a dotted line manager. And she was even like, then you got to go. Like, if this is it, and this is as much as you think you're going to get from here, then move on. And one thing I did notice is when I left, I would say that's when also you might get opportunities to stay within the company. I know that's when there were some great opportunities that did come in to expand out, and I could have gone in some different directions. They were open to it. Right. So it's kind of like when you're ready to go, make sure you also talk internally, like to get
absolutely
what you want to get. Cause they might be able to do something for you. That's actually kind of interesting. And take you in a direction you might not have expected. And I think that brings up the whole thing of being open. Don't necessarily always be so like, it's going to be this next step. Like that's a good, yeah, you should have a next step, but be open to if someone wants to drag you way left or way right off your path, because that might be actually better for you if you sat down and thought about it.
Yeah. And that's really the key, is to think about it and know what it is you want and need at any point in time, and then, seek the opportunities and move them. And part of this, just to close out, because believe it or not, we're almost done.
Oh, wow.
This one went really fast. But, part of that is, and I notice this when I'm talking to my clients who get to this point where they're feeling stuck and, they stayed too long in one place. There's a lot of reasons that we might stay too long in one place. But one of them is this: we just kind of assume we're there until someone shows us a new opportunity, as opposed to taking on responsibility for ourselves. But what I was going to say is you got to get good at change. You got to get good at, recognizing, okay, some point in the next 5 years after I start a job, I'm probably going to be ready for a change. When is that point? And how do I notice it? How do I manage it when I get there and reach out and learn to, do what I need to do to help me change comfortably without waiting for it to get traumatic, without waiting for it to get, where I'm just at such loggerheads with my boss that, I'm worried about getting fired. It's like really becoming comfortable with that process. And that's why we call it fluid. You want to kind of go from opportunity to opportunity smoothly and fluidly, instead of making this like just hard and painful at every step.
Yeah, your brain, that goes back to like what we were talking about, the self-awareness too, because you do have to have an incredible amount of self-awareness versus, again, you go back to the old model, right? You don't have to have any, you just kind of coast. Like, oh, I got a new job, or oh, I got new this. And now it's not like, yeah, you have to know when you're ready.
Exactly.
Or when it's time. Let's put it that way too.
Well, and even if you don't know, you got to listen to when your internal dialogue shifts, and maybe you should go find out. Like, I don't know if it's ready, but I think I need to go talk to some people and do some thinking and get some advice and see if the time is now. And then of course, what do you do then? Well, you can talk to your boss, but you may or may not feel comfortable with that. We recommend going to careercenter.InPowerCoaching.com. There's a lot of
better choice, actually. Yeah, go there first.
Go there first. There's a lot of resources that will help you. We provide virtual coaches and real coaches to support you there.
Yeah.
For that reason, because, we're not always good at knowing what to do with the feelings that we're not quite, things aren't quite as good as they used to be. And that's really, you just want to be aware of that and then moving on that instead of just sinking into feeling powerless and like I can't do anything, which is more of the free agent mindset we talked about last week. So our time is up. Thank you very much for joining from wherever you're joining from. And, I think, what's next week's topic?
It is open at the moment. I know if anyone's out there who wants to contribute, I'd like to do something for Valentine's Day because it's Valentine's Day. So it would be fun to do something about romance in the workplace. If we can, that's what I would like to do. So if there's anyone out there who'd like to share their story about romance in the workplace, if it went well or not, we'll explore it. I think we've all had a romance in the workplace experience. So it's always interesting to talk about those. Because again, some are really good and some are really bad. I know I've had both. So yeah.
Well, and you're on your own next week because I'm going to be traveling, and I don't really have any good workplace romance stories, so I'm not sure I would add that much anyway.
No,
But,
well, everybody does. There has to be one.
okay, well, just a reminder, there's a lot of ways to connect with us. Respond to this in comments below wherever you are. But you can go to coffeebreak.InPowerCoaching.com to find links to all the different places that you can catch these recordings or participate live. So we encourage you to check in with us next Tuesday, talk to Mary about your workplace romances. And you can sign up for reminders there. So we will always be able to tell you what topics are coming up that you can jump in and join us with. Take care. Thanks, Mary.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.